Emily thought she knew her family inside out. Her dad, Richard, was her hero, steady, kind, the man who taught her how to ride a bike and promised he'd always protect her. But the day she opened that DNA test, everything changed. It started as a curiosity, a quick swab, a fun Christmas idea. But when she saw the results, her hands went cold. Because the data said something impossible. The man she'd called Dad for 26 years shared zero biological connection with her. Weeks later, sitting under the hot studio lights of Dr. Phill, that truth exploded in front of millions. And what Richard confessed next forced the entire studio to fall silent. Sometimes, the truth doesn't just change your story, it rewrites who you are. The set was bright, polished, and clinical, but when Emily started to speak, it felt like the air itself fractured. Her hands trembled around the folder on her lap. Each breath came shorter than the one before. Across from her, Richard sat rigid, jaw tight, his wedding ring glinting under the lights. Dr. Phil's voice carried softly across the stage. "Emily, tell us why you're here today." Her throat tightened. "Because my whole life might be a lie." The audience shifted uneasily. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. Emily opened the folder and pulled out a printed sheet, her DNA results. She said quietly, "I didn't come here to embarrass my father. I came here because I need to understand why he lied." Dr. Phill looked at Richard. "Do you know what she's talking about?" Richard's face stayed expressionless. "I have no idea," but the flicker in his eyes told another story. Emily turned to him. "Dad, the test says we're not related." "Not at all." Gasps rippled through the audience. Dr. Phill leaned forward, calm but firm. "Richard, your daughter's telling you something that's rocking her world right now. Are you saying she's mistaken?" Richard's lips parted, but no words came out. For 20 seconds, silence ruled the room. Then Emily whispered, "Tell them what you told me last night." Richard's hands clenched. "I told you not to bring this here." The tension was unbearable. Dr. Phill didn't interrupt. He let the weight of those words hang. Emily's voice cracked. "You said you'd explain everything. So do it now." He exhaled slowly, the way a man does when there's no more running left. "If I tell you, you'll never look at me the same." The entire audience leaned forward. Dr. Phill said quietly, "Then I think it's time we all hear the truth." Richard's shoulders sagged. He looked down, then met Emily's eyes. "You think you found your mother through that test," he said. "But the truth is, you were never supposed to find her at all." The producers signaled for a break, but Dr. Phill shook his head. "Keep rolling." Emily's tears spilled over. "What are you talking about?" He hesitated, voice breaking. "Because you were never supposed to exist in her world again." The crowd froze. Even Dr. Phil's expression changed, curiosity giving way to concern. In that moment, Emily realized something chilling. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a secret that had lived longer than she had. As the camera zoomed in, Richard's next words would shatter the illusion of father and daughter forever. If someone raised you in love but built your life on a lie, which would matter more, the truth or the years they gave you? 3 months before the cameras, before the stage lights and the whispers, Emily's life looked simple, happy, even. She worked as a teacher, lived in a cozy apartment 2 streets away from her father, and was planning her wedding to her college sweetheart, Luke. Every Sunday, she and her dad had the same routine. Breakfast at the diner, then home to fix something that didn't really need fixing. That morning, over coffee, she'd said with a grin, "Dad, I got you a Christmas gift early this year." Richard chuckled. It's October." "I know," she said, sliding a small box across the table. "It's one of those DNA kits. You spit in it. They tell you where you're from. Fun, right?" He hesitated just a moment too long before smiling. "You and your science projects." Emily laughed and didn't think twice about it. That night, when she got home, she ordered a second kit for herself. "We'll compare our results," she told him later. "Maybe we'll find out we've got royal blood." Richard smiled again, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. 2 weeks later, her results arrived first. She sat on the couch, scrolling through the ancestry chart. Ireland, Scotland, small traces of Scandinavian DNA. Nothing surprising. But when she clicked family matches, her breath caught. The app showed zero genetic relation to Richard Carter. None. Not even a half match. Instead, there was another name, a woman named Carol Anderson. And under parental relationship, it said one word that made Emily's pulse quicken. Mother. At first, she laughed it off. The company must have made a mistake. But the deeper she looked, the stranger it became. Carol Anderson's profile listed a daughter born in 1998. The date was close enough to her own to make her stomach twist. The next day, she called the company. I think there's been an error, she explained. My dad's not showing up in my results. The representative checked twice, then quietly said, I'm sorry, ma'am. The data's accurate. There's no biological connection. Emily hung up, her ears ringing. The sound of her heartbeat filled the room. She called her dad immediately. Hey, weird question. Are you sure we sent the right sample? He chuckled nervously. Of course. You're my kid, Em. What's this about? Because the test says otherwise, she whispered. A pause. Then his tone hardened. Those things aren't always right. Forget about it. But she couldn't. That night, she sat on her bed scrolling through Carol Anderson's public photos. One picture made her chest tighten. A woman with soft brown eyes, the same dimple Emily had always wondered where she got. And in the comments, someone had written, still missing her every day. Emily clicked the attached link. It led to a post about a baby girl who went missing from a hospital 26 years ago. A baby with her same birthday, her same birth weight. Her phone slipped from her hands. She didn't sleep that night. She just sat in the dark, replaying her father's words. Those things aren't always right. By morning, she knew she couldn't ignore it. She printed the DNA results, the photo, and the post. She needed answers. That evening, she drove to her father's house. He greeted her at the door with his usual warmth, until he saw the papers in her hand. What's this? He asked, voice tight. Proof, she said quietly. Proof that you've been lying to me. His face drained of color. Emily, where did you get that? Online, she said. Dad, who is Carol Anderson? He rubbed his forehead, shaking his head. You're making a mistake. But the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Emily's chest ached. You can tell me the truth, or I'll find it myself. That line, she'd later say, was the moment everything broke. For the next week, he avoided her calls. Texts went unanswered. He'd never done that before, not once in her life. When she finally showed up at his house again, the front door was unlocked. His tools were scattered on the floor. The old wooden chest that sat in the corner, the one she'd never seen him open, was slightly ajar. Inside was a single photo. A hospital room. A man holding a baby. The timestamp in the corner didn't match her birth year. On the back, 2 words written in blue ink. Baby Carter. Emily stared at it for a long time, her heart pounding, her throat dry. And in that moment, she knew. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a cover-up. She picked up the photo, whispered to herself, Who are you, Dad? Because suddenly, she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. The next morning, she would return to his house and uncover the truth he'd spent decades hiding. If you discovered your entire identity might be a lie, would you still confront the person who gave you love or protect the illusion to keep your world intact? The next morning, sunlight spilled across Richard's porch, catching on the peeling white paint of the old swing Emily used to sit on as a kid. That image, that ordinary piece of her childhood, looked wrong now, like a photograph from someone else's life. She stood there for a long moment, clutching the photo she'd found the night before. The edges were worn, soft from years of handling. Someone had looked at it often. When Richard opened the door, he looked smaller somehow, as if the years had caught up overnight. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. His eyes told her he already knew why she was there. Dad, she said quietly. Who's baby Carter? He froze. His hand, still gripping the doorframe, trembled. You went through my things? You've been lying to me my whole life, she shot back. I had to. He looked away. That's not what you think it is. She held up the photo, voice shaking. Then tell me what it is, because this, she gestured toward the baby in his arms, isn't me. And you know it. The air between them thickened with something unspeakable. Fear, shame, love. It was all tangled. Finally, he said softly, Come inside. The living room was quiet except for the ticking of the old wall clock. He sat down in his chair, the same one he'd fallen asleep in during movie nights. But there was no comfort in it now. Emily stayed standing. "I didn't want you to find out this way," he said. "Then how?" she snapped. "Were you ever planning to tell me? Or were you going to let me marry, have kids, live my whole life thinking I knew who I was?" He sighed, looking so tired she almost pitied him. "I was going to tell you. I just never found the right time. There's never a right time for this kind of lie." He rubbed his temples, silent. When he finally looked up, his eyes glistened. "Emily, you have to understand something. I didn't lie to hurt you. I did it to protect you." "From what?" she asked. He hesitated, as if saying it out loud would make it real. "From the truth." She stared, stunned. "Do you even hear how crazy that sounds?" He stood now, his voice rising for the first time. "You don't know what it was like. Your mother." He stopped abruptly. His jaw tightened. "No, you don't get to judge me." Her heart pounded. "Then tell me what happened." He looked at her for a long moment, then walked toward the fireplace. Above it, in a small wooden frame, was a faded photo of her late mother, smiling, holding baby Emily. "You weren't supposed to see that photo," he said quietly. "You weren't supposed to see any of this." Emily's voice broke. "Why? Who am I?" The question hung between them, sharp as glass. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned and walked into his office. She followed. He opened the desk drawer and pulled out an envelope, yellowed, sealed with tape. Her name was written across it in shaky handwriting. He handed it to her. "This is everything. But once you open it, there's no going back." Emily hesitated. Her fingers trembled as she tore it open. Inside were hospital records, newspaper clippings, and a birth certificate with a different name. "Baby girl Anderson." Her breath hitched. "Anderson," she whispered. "That's the name from the DNA test." He closed his eyes. She stared at him, realization hitting her like a tidal wave. "You took me." His eyes flew open. "No," he said quickly, stepping closer. "I didn't take you. I saved you." Her voice rose, breaking. "From who?" He swallowed hard. "From a woman who didn't want you. From a system that would have eaten you alive." Emily shook her head, tears spilling. "You don't get to rewrite what you did. You stole someone's baby, Dad." His face twisted in pain. "You don't understand. She left you there, alone. I found you crying in that hospital room after your mother's miscarriage. She couldn't handle another loss. So his voice cracked. "I brought you home. I gave you a life." The room spun. She backed away from him. "No, you gave me a lie." He stepped forward, desperate now. "Everything I did was out of love, Emily. You were meant to be mine." She looked at him through tears. "You had no right to decide that." For a long moment, neither spoke. The ticking clock filled the silence. Then, quietly, she said, "I'm going to find her." He nodded, eyes hollow. "I figured you would." Emily turned to leave. As she reached for the doorknob, he said softly, "Please remember one thing. Whatever you find out there, she's not the one who raised you. I am." She paused, her voice trembling. "And that's what makes this hurt the most." When she left, the photo of baby Carter slipped from her pocket onto the porch, landing face up in the morning sun. Inside, Richard sat alone, the echo of the front door slamming like a final sentence. Hours later, Emily's phone would buzz with a message from an unknown number. "I think I know who you are." If the truth meant destroying the only person who ever loved you, would you still chase it? The studio lights burned hotter than usual that day, or maybe it just felt that way to Emily. She sat rigid in her chair across from her father, the same man who used to chase monsters out from under her bed. But now, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real monster had been sitting at the dinner table all along. Dr. Phill leaned forward, his voice calm but probing. "Emily," he said, "you told my producers there's something your father's been hiding. Why don't you start by telling us what you found?" Her hand trembled slightly as she opened the folder. "I found out I'm not who I thought I was. That my name, my life, none of it started the way I was told." The audience murmured softly. Dr. Phill turned to Richard. "Is that true?" Richard inhaled deeply, his chest rising and falling as if he was preparing to drown. "Before I answer that," he said, "you need to understand what was happening back then." Emily shot him a glare. "No excuses. Just the truth." He nodded slowly, almost broken. 26 years ago, I was working at St. Mary's Hospital. My wife, your mother, she lost our baby girl during labor. We were destroyed. I remember holding her hand while she cried, begging God to take her pain away. Then, one night, that cry came. Emily frowned. What cry? He closed his eyes. A baby's. Left alone in an empty maternity room. Dr. Phil's expression darkened. You're saying you found a newborn? Unclaimed? Richard nodded. There was no one there. No one came forward. I looked at that baby, and I swear it felt like God had placed her there for us. I didn't think. I just took her. Gasps filled the room. Even the crew froze behind the cameras. Emily's face went pale. You mean you took me? He looked down. Yes. The silence that followed was suffocating. You could hear the sound of the cameras adjusting, the hum of the lights. Dr. Phill leaned forward, tone low but steady. You do realize what you're describing. Richard is kidnapping. Richard nodded weakly. I know what it sounds like. I know what I did. But I swear it wasn't malicious. It was desperation. My wife was slipping away. I couldn't lose her too. Emily's hand shook. So, you stole someone else's child and decided that was love? His voice cracked. I thought I was saving you. She shot back. Saving me? You stole me from my mother. You took away her chance to know me. Tears welled in his eyes. You think I don't know that? I've lived with that guilt every single day. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time I tucked you in, I thought, what if someone else was supposed to be here instead of me? Dr. Phill stayed quiet, giving the moment space to breathe. The kind of silence that makes people listen. Richard continued, your real mother, Carol Anderson. She was 17. She gave birth alone, then ran away. The hospital was supposed to call social services. But when I saw you, tiny, helpless, abandoned, I made a choice. A terrible one. Emily's voice broke. And all those nights you told me Mom was proud of me. Those were lies, too? He wiped his face with shaking hands. She was proud. The woman you called Mom, she loved you like her own. Maybe because, in every way that mattered, you were. The room was silent, except for the muffled sound of someone crying softly in the audience. Then Dr. Phill asked the question that hung over every second of that show. Richard, did you ever try to find Carol, the biological mother? He hesitated. Once. Years ago. I went back to that hospital, but there were no records. Everything was sealed. It felt like fate was telling me to stop digging, to leave it buried. Emily swallowed hard. So, you let me grow up believing a lie? I thought I was protecting you, he said. I didn't want you to think you were unwanted. I wanted you to feel chosen. Her eyes filled with tears. Chosen? You didn't choose me. You chose your own comfort. The words hit like a slap. Richard lowered his head. For a moment, no one moved. The cameras panned slowly across the room. You could feel the collective ache, the moral grayness of a man who'd built a lie out of love, and a daughter who no longer knew who she was. Dr. Phill finally spoke. Emily, I know you came here for answers. You got them. But now comes the harder part, deciding what to do with the truth. She stared at her father, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't even know what to call you anymore. Richard looked up, eyes red. Then call me what I've always tried to be. Your dad. That line broke something in a room. The audience didn't clap. No one moved. Even Dr. Phill sat back, exhaling deeply. Then, in a voice almost too quiet for the mic to catch, Emily said, You might have been my father, but you were never my truth. Dr. Phill turned to the crew. Cut it there, he said softly. And for the first time in years, the cameras stopped rolling before the show was over. Backstage, as the studio emptied, a woman approached the producers, claiming to be the real Carol Anderson. If love is born out of deception, does it still count as love, or is it just another form of control? The cameras were off, but the tension still crackled in the air. The crew moved quietly, whispering instructions, avoiding eye contact with either of them. It was as if everyone in that studio knew they just witnessed something sacred and shattering. The kind of truth you don't clap for, you just absorb. Emily sat frozen on the stage, her fingers locked together in her lap. The lights were still too bright. Her father, or the man she thought was her father, stood a few feet away, speaking softly to one of the producers. Every time she looked at him, it was like looking at a ghost. Dr. Phill approached her gently, his voice calm, but weighted. You don't have to process this today, Emily. No one expects you to. But she wasn't hearing him. Her mind was replaying every moment of her childhood in reverse. Her birthdays, his hugs, the bedtime stories he made up when she was sick. All of them now tangled with one awful question. Was any of it real? She stood slowly. I need some air, she said. Outside, the California sky felt too open, too sharp. She pressed her hand against the cool metal railing and tried to breathe. Inside, she could still hear the muffled sounds of movement. The buzz of crew members, the click of heels, the low hum of a producer's radio. The world kept turning, even though hers had just split in two. Then she heard his voice behind her. Em. She turned sharply. Don't call me that. Richard stopped a few feet away, hands trembling. He looked older now, drained. I never wanted this to come out like that, he said. She laughed bitterly. How did you want it to come out, Dad? Oh, wait. I can't call you that anymore either, can I? He swallowed hard. You can call me whatever you need to. Yell. Scream. Hate me. I deserve it. She looked at him, really looked. His shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. He wasn't the monster she'd built in her head over the last few hours. He was something worse, a broken man who believed he'd done the right thing. You raised me to tell the truth, she said, her voice trembling. And you were living a lie. He nodded slowly. I know. Every day, I looked at you and wondered when this moment would come. So why didn't you tell me? He sighed. Because I didn't want to lose you. Her eyes filled with tears. You lost me the moment you lied. The silence between them was unbearable. He reached out, but she stepped back. Please, he whispered. Just let me explain. I don't need explanations, she said. I need time. Dr. Phill appeared in the doorway, his voice low. Emily, there's someone here who wants to meet you. Says her name is Carol Anderson. Everything inside her went still. She turned toward the hall. At the far end stood a woman, mid-40s, nervous, clutching a purse like it was armor. Her eyes were wide, wet with disbelief, and they were Emily's eyes. The woman took a cautious step forward. Emily, the sound of her name from that voice sent chills down her spine. Richard turned away, his shoulders sagging. Dr. Phill glanced between them. We don't have to film this part, he said softly. This can be private. Emily's throat tightened. No, I want to hear her. Carol's voice trembled. I never stopped looking for you. I thought you were dead. Emily couldn't breathe. The room felt like it was closing in, too much emotion, too many years lost. Richard pressed a hand to his face. I didn't know how to tell her. Carol cut him off, her tone raw. You stole her. He didn't argue. He just nodded, eyes shining. I know, and I'd spend the rest of my life paying for it if I could. Emily stepped between them. Stop, both of you. I can't do this right now. She walked out, the cameras forgotten, the audience gone, leaving only silence behind her. Hours later, in her hotel room, she sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone. It buzzed, a text from Dr. Phil's team asking if she wanted to film a follow-up segment. She ignored it. Another message came in, this time from an unknown number. It was Carol. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to know you. And beneath it, another from her father. Please don't shut me out. I'll tell the world what I did if it gives you peace. Emily set the phone down and wept quietly. She wasn't angry anymore. Not exactly. She was something deeper, hollowed out, lost, but strangely aware that her next choice mattered more than any before. The next morning, she told the producers she'd come back for one last interview. Not for closure. Not for TV. For herself. Sitting in that same chair again, she said softly to the camera, I don't know if I can forgive him, but I understand him now. And maybe that's where forgiveness starts. Her words rippled through the studio. Even the crew stopped moving. Because in that moment, everyone watching realized something profound. Sometimes, forgiveness isn't about who deserves it. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of what they did. Weeks later, Emily would receive a letter postmarked from the county jail, and what was inside would change how she saw her father forever. When someone you love shatters your trust, is forgiveness a gift to them or to yourself? The letter came on a quiet Thursday morning. No fanfare, no warning. Just a plain envelope with a shaky return address scrawled in blue ink. R. Carter, County Jail. Emily stared at it for a long time, her heart heavy but steady. For weeks, she tried to bury herself in routine, going to work, answering calls from Carol, pretending things were normal. But there was no going back to normal. Not when your entire past had been rewritten. She sat at her kitchen table, the morning sun bleeding through the curtains, and opened the envelope. Inside was a single page, creased down the middle. "Emily," it began, "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I need you to know why I did what I did." His handwriting shook in places. The ink smeared as if tears had hit the page. "When I found you that night, I wasn't thinking like a man. I was thinking like a father who had already lost everything. You were crying, small, helpless, and I thought God was giving me a second chance. I told myself I was saving you. But really, I was saving myself." Emily's eyes blurred as she kept reading. "I've learned in here that love can't exist without truth. And I took that from both of us. But if you ever wonder whether I loved you, know this. Every lie I told was built on that love. I'll never forgive myself for it. But I hope one day you can." At the bottom, a single line in smaller writing. "You were never mine to keep, but you'll always be my daughter." Her chest ached. She folded the letter carefully, setting it beside the photo she'd carried since childhood. The two of them, laughing by the lake, long before any of this. That same afternoon, she met with Carol again. This time, it wasn't on camera, and it wasn't for answers. It was just two women sitting in a park, trying to bridge a lifetime of loss. Carol had brought a scrapbook, pages filled with photos of a life Emily never knew. Birthdays she wasn't there for, a nursery that stayed empty, newspaper clippings of missing child reports. "I never stopped looking," Carol whispered, tracing the edge of one old picture. "Every year I hoped someone would call. That one day, I'd hear your voice." Emily wiped her eyes. "He told me you left me." Carol shook her head. "I didn't. I was 17. I passed out from blood loss after delivery. When I woke up, you were gone." That truth hit harder than any confession before. Emily felt the sting of betrayal mixed with something unexpected, relief. At least now she could separate love from deceit. The story of her life wasn't just built on lies anymore. It was built on choices, some terrible, some selfless, all human. Over the following months, Emily began to heal in small, uneven steps. She joined a local support group for people who discovered family secrets through DNA tests. Stories poured out. Hidden adoptions, long-lost siblings, parents with double lives. She wasn't alone anymore. One night, when it was her turn to speak, Emily took a breath and said, "Forgiveness doesn't mean you're okay with what happened. It means you stop letting it define who you are." The room went quiet, everyone listening. Then slowly they nodded. That's when she realized something important. Her story wasn't just hers. It belonged to everyone who'd ever lived in the space between truth and love. Months later, a journalist reached out. They wanted to write a feature on her journey, to highlight the emotional and ethical ripple effects of hidden identities. Emily hesitated at first. She'd already lived enough public pain. But then she remembered the letter, the one where Richard wrote that truth is love's only real form. So she agreed, but on one condition: this isn't about blame. It's about understanding. The article, titled "The Daughter Who Wasn't Supposed to Be Found," went viral. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was real. People across the world shared their own hidden truths in the comments. Stories of redemption, reconciliation, and the unbearable weight of secrets. In one interview, the journalist asked her, "Do you still consider him your father?" Emily thought for a long moment before answering. "I consider him the man who raised me, loved me, and lied to me. And somehow, I still love him for all three." She smiled softly. Family isn't about blood. It's about who stays when the truth comes out. The journalist's eyes softened. "Would you change anything if you could?" She shook her head. "No, because without the lie, I might have never understood the truth." That night, she stood by her window, watching the city lights flicker like tiny sparks of forgiveness. In her hands, she held her father's letter, the last words he'd ever written to her before being transferred to a long-term facility. She read them one more time, whispered, "I forgive you, and tucked the letter into her scrapbook, right next to a photo of the three of them together for the first time. Her, Richard, and Carol. The photo wasn't perfect. Carol's smile was cautious, Richard's was weary, and Emily's eyes still held sadness. But beneath all that pain was something unmistakable: peace. Because sometimes truth doesn't heal you in one big moment. It heals you quietly, piece by piece, until one day you wake up and realize you've stopped bleeding. The truth didn't ruin her life. It rebuilt it, one scar at a time. Is forgiveness the final step of love or the first act of freedom? If this story touched you, take a moment to think about your own truth. Have you ever carried a secret you thought would destroy someone, only to find that honesty set you both free? Share your thoughts below. And remember, the truth may hurt, but silence always wounds deeper.